Last time we detailed the significantly bad, notably mediocre, and average flirters of Elden Ring boss quality. Today we'll shine a light on the 11 greatest that remain. This will be my finale of Elden Ring videos, so thank you to everyone who voted, watched, and supported these last few months. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Crashing the notably good party well above the 26% cutoff is Margit the Fell Omen. This boss embodies From Software's incredible design capabilities and sets a very high bar for upcoming encounters. It serves not only as a fantastic introduction to the game's various mechanics, but makes you question your own ability, forces you to try different approaches, and optimize your combat style to finally master the challenge, leaving you fully prepared for further in your journey. Margit serves as Stormveil's gatekeeper, a juggernaut of early game difficulty prepared to snuff out any tarnished unprepared for the trials to come. Flames of ambition alone aren't enough. It's where the fire carries you. Perhaps to the dark caves of Limgrave to hone your skills against its mini-bosses, expanding your armory in the process. Maybe you found the broken bridge to Liurnia and gained access to powerful sorcery. Or like many, your ambitious flame surged like an inferno of determination, overcoming Margit with minimal exploration. Margit is such a great opening boss depending on how much you explore. A lot of bosses in Elden Ring have standard and delayed combos. Margit is an excellent learning tool to build up some of the lower ends muscle memory to prepare for the fights to come. It's no secret that Margit is tough, especially for the first major boss many players encounter. What's so impressive is that despite arduously lengthy struggles, players are leaving his battle with immense gratification. Well, mostly. Margit isn't as good as everyone thinks. His ability to combo cancel isn't fun, it's annoying. I hate his conjure dagger attacks too. Way too fast for Elden Ring's game speed. More like Margit the Dumb Omen, am I right? That he ranks just outside the top 10 means there are certainly detractors, or at least that he isn't worth the highest honors. I do agree that combo cancels at Elden Ring's game speed are tricky and do border on unfair, which is why I didn't include him or his true form in my personal best. They were both right on the fringe, however, because as all the previous commenters well stated, Margit exudes quality as he squashes our foul tarnished in search of the Elden Ring. If you're searching for your own treasure, look no further than today's sponsor, Bespoke Post. A free-to-join monthly membership club, they deliver badass boxes full of cool products such as outdoor gear, barware, home goods, food, clothes, even live plants. Almost entirely sourced from small businesses, members are sent a lineup of constantly changing boxes based on a preference quiz they fill out. If you want to be less scatterbrained like me, check out the Moment Box. With a handy task organizer and stylish watch, you'll probably maybe never be late again. If you're more of an adventurer, the Explore Box has you covered with a water bottle, headlamp with multiple settings, coconut vanilla bean energy bar, and compact backpack. And if you're a cocktail connoisseur like me, the Smoked Box provides hickory wood chips, cloche, and butane torch to pyromaniac up your favorite drinks. After a few weeks, I've found the watch to be a fashion staple, I use the water bottle for my workouts, and the smoker received the highest honor, Doggo Approved. There's loads more than these on the website for a wide array of interests. You'll get a preview of your box each month, and you can keep it, swap it, or skip the month entirely at no cost. Each box has around $70 in retail value, but only costs $49. To save 20% on your first box, click my link in the description and enter code DMOD20 or go to bespokepost.com/DMOD20. Rounding out the bottom 10 is the game's back-to-back finale fights, Radagon and Elden Beast. This pairing is really going to tank Radagon's ranking since he's my favorite fight in the game, but Elden Beast is a legitimate 0 out of 10, so there's no way I can justify giving them anything positive. While it would be interesting to see how they'd rank separately, I couldn't justify it because victory can't be claimed without beating both in a single attempt. If I had to guess, Radagon would crack the top 5 solo, and Elden Beast would probably fall somewhere into the bottom 10. I'd like to take a look at two diverging takes on the matter. Radagon is a fantastic endgame boss. After making it through several demigods and grasping the lore of the lands between, I couldn't think of anyone more suitable than Radagon. His moveset kept me on the edge of my seat, and while I think the teleport abuse may be excessive, I handled it quite efficiently. I felt so alive going toe-to-toe with it. Then along came Elden Beast. I had some of the worst encounters with the beast. It would chain so many attacks together that I was lucky to waste just a flask or two. I'll never forget the run where he layered the triple Elden Ring attack with Elden Stars. I was so close to slaying the beast, but the hit stun hindering my jumps led to my death, with Elden Stars exploding in my face, taking me to the grave even after getting through the triple ring attack with it on my heels. I felt so discouraged. The beast attacks aren't difficult to dodge alone. But when they layer on top of each other, I don't even think the grace of Marika can get me through that. Too long, didn't read. Radagon suffers in terms of quality due to his second phase Elden Beast with too many negatives to outweigh the positives. Just give us Torrent, Miyazaki. I have a feeling this comment will resonate with many of you, but I would like to give Elden Beast enjoyers a fair representation. I actually love Elden Beast more than Radagon, and I adore Radagon. This astral divine being feels like a true encounter with a god. Almost like something out of a fever dream. The mysterious and amazing score that plays when Elden Beast emerges put me in tears the first time and still makes me emotional 50 plus times later. The boss plays slow, but that's the point. You're fighting this stellar being, planes beyond you in every way. The fight feels more like a conversation instead of a dance. Its elegant and fluid moves together with the extremely beautiful arena makes me feel a way no other boss has. I wanted to highlight Drotyr's excellent comment because the passion behind it is something that I share. While I understand and agree with the frustrations many have toward Elden Beast, I still have immense appreciation for the spectacle, score, and thought behind most of its design. What I think works against Elden Beast is what Andrew highlighted. Every fight is a toss-up of layered attack RNG and melee versus excessive ranged attacks that can make each experience highly variable in quality if consistency is important to you. I think Elden Beast is a flawed boss that gets overshadowed mechanically by the incredible interlude. Radagon is top tier, no doubt about it, but a shout out to those who think Elden Beast is a bit greater than we may let on. But if you want to talk divisive, it doesn't get any more dicey than Malenia Blade of Miquella. No one disagreed that she's difficult, so it feels as if discussion boils down to, did you find that challenge rewarding, fair, and well designed? One of the best fights in FromSoft history, akin more to a Bloodborne boss than an Elden Ring one, she has a steep learning curve with a healthy mix between lightning fast attacks and slow windups as well as a deceptive balance of passivity and aggression. All of her moves feel fair once you learn how to dodge them. Malenia forces you to play nigh perfectly, having to not only know when to roll, but where to roll to avoid her attacks, which makes finally defeating her one of the greatest highs you can get in a FromSoft game. Clearly I'm in close agreement since I personally ranked her quite highly. I do think that despite every move having a reasonable counter, the margin of error is razor thin to a punishing degree in the face of everything else she has going for her in lifesteal, speed, vitality, and damage. I'm not alone in thinking this way, and perhaps I'm sugarcoating it since she received by far the most votes for the worst in the top 15. Malenia represents a lot of what I find wrong with FromSoft's new design philosophy. I actually like her healing gimmick. It works well in her first phase because she's more passive and has less crazy attacks barring Waterfowl. But in phase 2, she inherits some of the worst qualities of FromSoft's recent bosses. Infinite stamina, spammy attacks, and combos that last forever with no room for punish, some borderline undodgeable. Fluttered visual design making it all harder to read, cancels for recovery animations, input reading, and nonsensical tracking. When I beat her, I didn't think I learned her and overcame the challenge, I just got lucky with good RNG. I read somewhere that there's concern FromSoft is in an arms race with its veteran players to keep taking a step forward, making harder and harder challenges to keep giving that boss euphoria. If they think forcing obscene death counts without consideration for balanced design, or leaving summons as the only viable method to circumvent overly aggressive design is the right path, I would be concerned for the future. Her fellow Shardbearer, Godrick the Grafted, exemplifies why I trust in FromSoft to understand that difficulty isn't everything. The pure spectacle he provides with excellent voice acting, soundtrack, and design mixed with a fair challenge for a first playthrough as well as a jaw-dropping phase transition, where you see Godrick live up to his title and graft a damn dragon head to his arm and start screaming to his ancestors. Like holy hell, that dude cemented itself as one of my favorite transitions in the franchise, and one hell of an intro to the overall quality of most of the Shardbearers. You're not the only one. Godrick received the least votes for worst of any boss with 87. There is no purer adoration than for Godrick. He is perfectly designed with nearly all his moves being jumpable, dodgeable, or punished in the middle of his attacks, then evaded without any prediction necessary. He really feels like the best boss for Elden Ring combat. All the rules you've learned to this point apply. If a move looks able to be jumped, then it is. None of his moves except one art telegraphed and able to be dodged without prediction, and the one frame wind attack does pathetic damage, it's merely meant to push you off of him. He has no flaws and feels like the peak of Elden Ring's boss design. I can't speak for everyone, but what I crave more than ball-busting challenge is an engaging experience. Even if Godrick isn't racking up Malenia's body count, customers of the Grafter are leaving more satisfied. As twisted as that is. Though I don't think it gets any more twisted as we enter the significantly great with a boss Chris Hansen would tremendously hate. Mogh, Lord of Blood. His theme is excellent, his fight and moveset are very fun each time, his countdown mechanic is intimidating, yet reasonable gimmick when you consider the item and tier to counter the attack. My first time beating him, I just thought, man, this guy just feels right. He's one of the most balanced fights in the late game. His voice lines are awesome, his character design is incredible with flowing robes and imposing trident. Fingers crossed he and Miquella have a big presence in any DLC. They have so much untapped lore potential that I'd love to discover. He's my favorite fight and a real argument can be made for him being the game's best. Hey, I made that argument myself, so I'll keep it brief, as you said it brilliantly yourself. I really do appreciate Mogh's blood flame variations, especially after learning more about his lore. An exiled cursed child that had an outer god ignite his blood with flames, then silently recruiting followers to his cult, stealing Miquella and desiring to become his consort in an effort to rule is a gruesome, devilish backstory. Being his honored guest as he shows all his creative uses of blood flame is awe-inspiring. His moveset, speed, and moments of reprieve are expertly balanced. He's my personal favorite, and I'm happy to see him represented well by all of you. Another Dark Horse top choice of mine, I'm delighted to see Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, nearly crack the top 5. He's one of the game's most memorable fights. It's definitely their best attempt at a Stormruler type boss. Love the atmosphere, Rykard's design, and the entire fight itself. It may not be the most difficult boss, but bosses don't need to be difficult to achieve greatness. One thing Demon's Souls does well above its peers in boss design is creativity. Even if their initial attempts at bosses were hit or miss, I appreciated the effort to make each feel special in their own way. Later entries have emphasized the roll reaction combat only a few bosses like Penetrator or False King Allant forced. There's certainly merit to that formula, so it's nice to see it get married well in Rykard's battle with a gimmick that is accessible, intuitive, and thrilling to execute. It was so refreshing to see the fight design in a way that complemented Rykard's creative design, where I wasn't forced to enjoy either the fight or the spectacle. The voice acting, while considered goofy by some, is so memorable and speaks to his dissatisfaction with a greater will and other outer gods. The lore buildup is excellent, and he can't even really be killed. Going back to find his severed head being devoured by his follower is chilling and reminds me a little of Ludwig, grasping onto the vestiges of his ill-begotten purpose. Beautifully said, Sean. Having speedrun the game with Rykard being the first shardbearer you fight, I can attest that even after dozens and dozens of kills, he still retains his luster. He goes beyond being the best gimmick boss and well deserves recognition as one of FromSoft's better bosses overall. Far surpassing his many draconic brethren, Dragonlord Placidusax ascends to the top 5. He feels like one of the only late game bosses that's not balanced toward a specific playstyle, making any strategy viable. The disappearing act in phase 2 always gets my blood pumping, trying to figure out where he went and will show up next is exhilarating, and it all culminates in an arena-wide laser sweep a la Midir. That combined with the aesthetic choices like his arena and the Heart of the Storm and a theme that just oozes draconic power, cements the Dragonlord at the top of my list. Quite the compelling argument. Your first note on Placidusax not enforcing certain playstyles is notable. Placidusax plays well for his size, using distinct tells with long recovery frames to make any speed viable. This is balanced with a vast move pool to keep you on your toes, and the aforementioned second phase is full of teleporting assaults. If these sort of fights can be boiled down to a dance, Placidusax's tango has deliberate steps throughout on both the boss and the player's end, then spiking upward in tremendous shows of power, phasing in and out of space, and blasting the arena with a ferociously explosive beat. A dragon to rival the series best, Placidusax's spot amongst the heights of Elden Ring's bosses is well deserved. Speaking of heights, it seems like I'm not the only one that likes getting mollywopped by Maliketh the Black Blade's leaping antics. His lore is fantastic! I love that if you do his quest, he has a unique dialogue when you enter his arena. Best OST hands down in my opinion. His track had like a million different instruments playing at once, which conveys the intensity of the fight. Both his phases are fantastic and feel amazing to master. It feels so good once you get to the point where you can sneak attacks in the middle of his combos if you're good enough. Sure, he dies fast, but it's warranted with how unrelenting his combos can be. That's Maliketh's glass cannon nature in a nutshell. Shatter him or power up the death cannon. He did receive a notable amount more votes for worse than the other top 5, so I wonder if his extreme of win or lose quickly turned off some players. Admittedly, my experience was good regardless, but by far at its best when I felt like I was going tit for tat and not getting obliterated in seconds. But hey, that's all part of the learning process. The mention of finding clever windows to attack mid-combo is a key highlight of his design. The ability to do that in tandem with specific positioning to get punishes over simple roll R1 gives Maliketh a special depth that makes the mastery Riley mentioned all the more satisfying. If it weren't for the minority of detractors, he'd make the top 3, but was instead beat out by a mere 7 votes to the most notably absent boss from my own list, Morgott the Fell King. Firstly, his lore is hauntingly beautiful. A man shunned from birth because he was born cursed, becoming the only remaining demigod loyal to the Erd Tree. And despite his mother and father never loving him, he still loves them to the grave. Next, he has excellent build-up from your 2 encounters with Margit and the great world building in Lane-Dell, the royal capital. It is brilliant that FromSoft's placed the same boss blocking the start and end of your journey so you can see how far you've come. Finally, the fight is perfect with so many amazing moves that feel amazing to learn and dodge. Thing is, I don't disagree at all. As I've read more on the lore, I've gained a deeper appreciation for Morgott's significance. I have to say, when I initially played, he was actually one of my personal favorites. The struggle against him is the last before the mountaintop's damage spike, leaving him feeling a lot more balanced in terms of HP and damage. That is because I didn't explore thoroughly enough and had mid-tier gear and stats at best. If you properly explore and upgrade, you'll easily meet Morgott with a near fully upgraded kit. In the face of it, it greatly diminishes the time you get to enjoy his battle. You could absolutely see that as a mark of progression, but I see it as something great that ends too soon. And even in spite of his greatness, I felt Margit and Morgott were some of the most egregious with their animation cancels and speed. That said, there are many things to love, such as the story significance, music, evolution of Margit's learned moveset, vast variety of moves, and strong setting. And I'm clearly in the minority in placing him as my 11th or 12th best boss overall. He's an excellent expansion of Margit with longer strings, more mix-ups, and a second phase with dope blood attacks. He's fast with some delayed strikes and slams, and I found it exhilarating to perfectly attune to his offense in order to claim victory. Easily my favorite fight in the game. The people have spoken, and Morgott takes his rightful place amongst the top 3. Never could live up to Daddy Dearest though. Now we rank as Hoarah Loux. Godfrey is possibly the best human-sized boss in the entire game. All his swings have fair tells, high but not ridiculous damage, and can be eye-framed through with good timing. His arena-wide stomps also utilize jumping well. His second phase is where shit gets real. Watching all his limbs for fast attacks, delayed, deadly grabs with good counter opportunities if well evaded, and a non-stop barrage of swipes, punches, and kicks is demanding and exhilarating. There's a lot of bosses that strike fear into me across the series, but I don't know if there's ever been one that's put me on the edge of my seat more than Hoarah Loux. It's not that he's absurdly difficult as an entire package, but each split-second reaction feels vital in his second phase. Outside of a perfectly dodged grab or ground lift-up, there's hardly any opportunities to heal. Easy to make mistakes immediately put you on the defensive, which is a dangerous place to be in a brawl that is better outlived by taking every offensive opportunity available and shredding through his relatively mediocre second phase HP pool. Putting aside mechanics, a showdown against the first Tarnished and Elden Lord underneath the burning Erd Tree with one of the most hype-inducing tracks is an incredible setup. Oh, and did I mention that halfway through the battle he becomes a WWE wrestler after twizzlering his sanity tiger? Everything about this boss fight is perfect and I love it. By community measure, the only boss more perfect is your #1 choice, Starscourge Radahn. The moment you enter the castle, it's eerily empty and the foreboding music signals something great. Then you see the champions gather in the courtyard and Jaren's booming voice informs you that you're here to grant an honorable death to the mightiest demigod. Then while riding down the elevator and seeing the massive wasteland in front of you, you understand something incredible awaits. When you enter the fight, he's sniping you from 700 meters away, leaving you the choice of fighting him with an army of champions or charging in alone. Radahn's patterns are unpredictable and punishing, yet so fun to master. Then he leaps up into space, changes the color of the sky, and hurtles down like a fucking meteor. The coolness of everything he does, the music, the spectacle, and his satisfying mechanics make Radahn an unforgettable experience. There's no doubt Radahn's build-up is spectacular, perhaps one of the best I've seen in any game. I particularly love that it isn't a cutscene, but a moment in time that feels living, breathing, alive amongst some of the strongest warriors in the lands between, all directed towards slaying a fallen from grace demigod who hardly could be considered alive anymore. And yet, he fights you harder than anything to this point in the game. An underrated feature is the way he was hyped in the trailers. Pre-release, we see him as this massive, intimidating warrior who had this epic clash with Malenia that we don't see the conclusion of. I was super excited to fight him on this basis, but when we see him in game, he's a shell of what he once was. What I pictured as an epic clash felt like a mercy killing, but you know what? It was still one of the most epic fights this series has ever had. Also, please put in the video that a friend of mine died to Fia's champions more than Malenia. Get wrecked, Ben's friend! Or wait, did he one-shot Malenia then have a single slip-up on the champions? Sounds like Radagon's might reincarnated to me. While the strength of his story, setting, and build-up are prominent, his mechanical design isn't second fiddle. Radahn smoothly gliding around on his horse is a great choice from the developers. It makes him agile without losing the immense power and brute strength. The way they sprinkled in gravity magic is brilliant. With many magic-based bosses, magic becomes the star of the show. Yet here, magic is more of his offhand weapon, equally as threatening as melee, while melee still remains the primary focus. Combining consistent and punishable combos with delayed attacks, short and long range capabilities, along with the ability to vary up attack sequences, it is easily one of the most dynamic fights in the game and never feels unfair. Speaking of unfair, it's still baffling to me that he was ever nerfed. The initial outcry against Radahn as the worst boss in the series seems like a shallow puddle amongst a flowing river of love appreciating him as Elden Ring's greatest boss. But of course, that's just an aggregate reflection of your opinions. A nice way to conclude my Elden Ring videos. Thank you everyone for your patience with me while I delivered it all. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I'm really stoked to be moving on to other projects, starting with Cuphead's delicious last course, featuring a full ranking of the main course alongside it. Subscribe for that and more, and of course, I want to thank you for watching today, much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.